Hello there, it's the Archivist from tradingcardarchives.com, and I think I have a pretty special treat for everyone today. I just spent almost 2 hours translating the rules to Marvel Hero Battle. That's Kayou's TCG, only available in China, but it's a fully licensed Marvel TCG with beautiful cards that people collect here in the West and sell all the time. But I've never really seen anybody explain how to play it. And I don't know if it's really useful for you to learn that because even if you know the basic rules, you also have to translate all the rules on every single card in order to play it. So just like a magic card or something, these down here are different on each card and they affect the game as we'll see in the rules. So I'm going to show you translation of the entire rule book, and that will give you all the basics, but you would have to Google Translate these yourself in order to fully play the game. I just put a few in there that I would need. Yeah, so I'm not going to show much more of the cards unless it becomes important, but that's the idea here. Is we're gonna learn to play this game theoretically. So without further ado, let me bring up the graphics and we'll start talking about it. Oh, wow, look at that. Oh, my hands find it. Okay, cool. Oh, it looks a little weird, but hopefully you can see this. So this is a photo I took of the playmat that comes with the starter kits. It's very big in real life, so this would be the size of a real card. So this is a very large mat. But this shows you kind of the areas, and each player would have their own one of these, and it would be, you would be facing against each other, so they'd be opposite each other, right? You would sit on the energy card side of it, and the skill zone would face your opponent in both cases. So, okay, so yeah, the skill zone is kind of just where you put cards that are in play, sort of like the stack in Magic the Gathering. That's what would go there. And then this staging area, or the rules might translate it as configuration area, but I think staging area is a better translation for that. That's where your fighters go. So you can have up to 5 cards there, hero cards there, ready to fight. They can be face down or face up. They start face down, but they might turn face up with certain rules. And so that's kind of where your active players are, active characters. This is the damage. It's called damage prevention, but actually now I know that's a bad translation. This is actually sort of the damage recovery area, or basically when a character loses a battle, that's where they're going to go. So that'll come into play when we talk about battles. And then this energy card area is pretty interesting. So this game, kind of like Magic, doesn't require any other tools besides the cards themselves. But it doesn't have specific energy or land cards. Like, Pokemon TCG has energy cards and Magic the Gathering has land cards. And you need those in order to build good decks with those games. But this game doesn't work that way. This game, every card can also be an energy card. And in fact, like some cards, it's very beneficial if they're in the energy card area. They have special effects that can happen there. But generally, those cards are face down and you spend them like energy. So if you have 4 face down energy cards and some Iron Man skill requires 2 of them, you move 2 of them from the energy card area to the rest card area, and they turn face up at that point. And then the deck is kind of like your draw pile or your draw area. So that's where you put all the cards face down that aren't in play and are in your deck. Okay, so that's the battle mat. So you would have one of these and your opponent would have one of these, and now you kind of know what those areas are. So let's get into the actual rules. And it'll get a little intense, but just stick with me and we'll get through it. I'll put these images up on the website too, so you can get the raw image, because they're very large scans actually. So this is a scan of the first page of 6 pages of the rule book. They aren't all this text dense though, but I did translate as much as I could here. So, this says hero battle, so I didn't bother translating that. But this says the rules of the game. This says, description of a card, and there's numbers. I then mapped the translation of the numbers. So 1 here is the card name. In this case, it's probably Iron Spider-Man or something. Then 2 is the number of stars for that card. So you see how 2 is pointing to where these stars are. Now, those stars don't seem to have any effect in the game. I didn't find any rules anywhere that reference them, but it's possible that rules on the cards themselves reference the star counts. I'm not sure. Again, I didn't translate all the cards. There's thousands of cards, so I'm not going to do that. Hundreds, not thousands. But yeah, so anyway, that's the stars, but I guess it doesn't matter a whole lot. Then 3 is the card rarity, which again doesn't seem to affect gameplay at all. There are deck building rules, but it's not related to rarity. You could have a deck full of full of LRs if that's what you wanted to do, and that would be valid as far as their rules go. Then you have card effects. That's this area with all the text here. Now, some cards don't have any effects, and as you'll see below, the little symbol next to each line of text kind of helps you understand when that effect can happen in the game. Okay, and so then 6 is the combat power. That's what's on the left. So that's your combat or attack power. And then on the right of 6 is the support power or your aid power. And you'll see when we get into battles that characters can either be active in a battle, in which case they use their combat power, or they can be supporting in a battle. And if they're supporting in a battle, they use their support power. So both of those are important. I had been calling this defense earlier, but that's not actually what it is. When I translate everything, that is support. And it's meant to be like a supporting character or helping the main character out. It's not defending. Okay, and then you have 7. I don't know why they pointed this out, but they call that the first edition designation. And now that I've looked through all of my cards, they all have that on them. So I don't know if there are any other editions. I think there's only that one. But apparently that has some, it was important enough to call out in the rules, but I don't see it referenced anywhere else. But anyway, know that cards say first edition on them. And then 8, this is also weird. They like really over-explain this, but basically that's your card number, right? It's the ID of the card in the set. I use it for cataloging and things. People probably use it for sorting and binders. But there's something interesting there. And you see Rule 8 has quite a lot of text. What it's telling you is that some of these cards can have a number before the MW part. And if there's a number before that, it means it's an alternate art. Oh, sorry, I misspelled alternate. I'll fix that later. But yeah, alternate art card. So you can have like a higher rarity alt art version of the same card. And that will have a number, I guess, in front of the serial number there, they call it. Anyway, I don't know. I translated everything, and that's what it says. But then getting down into here, we have the meaning of the card effects. So those are those little symbols next to each card. So you can see here in this one, it's got some red and some green and blue ones. Well, they all have a different meaning. So the yellow one there means it activates on stage enter, which means it activates when it's played in the board. The red one means it's activate when it's flipped or shown. So cards start out upside down, face down. When they get flipped, that activates red ones. Blue ones activate when you attack. And green ones activate when you're the defender of an attack. So you can be the defender, there just isn't defense power. But if you're chosen to be attacked, then you are the defender and you can activate your green ability. Purple abilities activate when you're the support card. So if you're played as support, you can activate that purple effect. And then the filled black effect activates when you win a battle. And the sort of empty, that white version of it here, that activates when you lose a battle. And so sometimes there's like risk and reward to running a battle, and if you lose it, you might have to do things. And some cards give you benefits when you lose a battle, like they might let you draw extra cards or put more energy cards in or something like that. So losing a battle can also have a benefit if you have certain cards in the fight. Okay, so that's what the different effects are and what they mean. So then go to the goal of the game. So this is sort of your, most rules tell you like what the meaning of the game is or whatever. That's what this is. So the ways you can win this game is if your opponent has 5 cards in the damage zone. So if you remember, I translated that as like damage prevention. That's not right. That should be called just damage zone. And if your opponent has 5 cards there, that means they lost 5 battles and didn't recover any cards. You win. So that's one way to win. Another way to win is if the opponent runs out of cards in their deck. So you start with a certain number of cards. If you run out, you lose the game too. So that's another way you can win. You can kind of bleed your opponent out of cards. Okay, so that's sheet one. That's the most text-heavy one. We'll move on here. Well, this one has a lot of text, but it's not that complicated. So this is like rules of the game, or flow of the game is sort of the top word here. And then this page is dedicated to pre-game preparation. So sort of how you build your deck, how you deploy your initial cards, how you set up the board before you really start playing a turn. And so there's kind of two types of games that are described in the rules, although it's only referenced here. But there's what they call an ordinary game, which probably means like casual game against friends. In that case, you want to have 30 cards in your deck. But if you're playing a competition game, so they run competitions in their stores. If you ever watch a video or something of a Kayou store, they have tables set up in the store with these mats on them, and you're meant to play with other people inside the store, right? And I guess it's popular enough that people do that. And so if you're playing in a competition or in a tournament, you would have 40 cards in your deck. Now, either case, you want to have 10 extra cards sort of as your sideboard, and in between rounds, so you would play 3 rounds against the same opponent, kind of like Magic tournaments work. You can switch cards in from your sideboard, but you can't switch them in during the game. You only do that between rounds. Anyway, that's deck setup. And you can see that you can only have 2 copies of one card in the deck. So unlike Magic, where you can get up to 4, this one allows you 2 copies. And so that counts if the serial number is exactly the same. So the serial numbers with a number in front of them don't count as a copy. So the alt art ones, you can have more of them in. And then if you're playing in a tournament, as it says here, you can have up to 3 copies of a single card in a deck. So that's kind of where casual play, they want you to have more card variety, but in tournaments you can focus your deck a little more and have, copies of the cards you want in the deck. Okay, so cool. So that's building a deck, and you're meant to build it completely from scratch. And again, there's no like land cards or energy cards, so all your cards are going to be characters, characters who can play and fight, but they'll be used in different ways throughout the game. And so there's a little bit of strategy as to which cards you put in your deck. You don't want only attackers in there, because some of your cards are going to be used as energy cards or used as support cards. And so you want to make sure that your deck has a good enough mix of that to win. And that's sort of the strategy of the game. Okay, so then when you want to start, both sides shuffle and cut, just like any other card game. And then you put your deck in that library area or that draw zone of this part right here is where they're talking about here. That's where you put all your cards face down after they've been shuffled and cut. And then it says to use some kind of randomization to choose who goes first. You could do rock, paper, scissors. You could roll a dice, however you want to do it. But pick a player to go first. Then each player draws 9 cards from their deck and has to choose 5 of them to put in the staging area face down. See, just like in the picture here, see? So you're going to put 5 cards in there face down. And then the other 4 cards are your hand for the game. And your hand will grow and shrink throughout the game, but if it's ever more than 10 cards, you're not allowed to draw more. So once you have 10 cards, you've got to find a way to get rid of them, because you can't draw more cards than that. Although I don't see a lot of ways to gain more than 5 or 6 cards. That probably you won't hit that rule too often, but know that it's there. Okay, then each player places the top 2 cards of their deck. So again, that's these cards here, not the ones that you drew or the ones in the staging area, but 2 more cards. And those go into the energy area face down. And so remember what I was saying is some of your cards, like your best Iron Man card, might be one of those. And it might get put face down in the energy area, inaccessible to you as an attacker, and only usable as like energy, like a land card. So you have to keep that in mind when you're building a deck, is you may lose access to cards in that energy area. You might want to have ways to get them back out again. It's another kind of twist to the game. And then that red part there is stressing the point that players cannot look at the cards that are in the energy zone. So when you took those 2 top cards and put them there, you're not allowed to look at them. That you can't know, for example, that your best Iron Man card is there. You have to guess. You're not allowed to know. So you have to put them there without looking. And you can't look at the other players, they can't look at yours. No one's allowed to know what cards are in the energy zone. It's kind of just how the game works there. Cool, so that's how you set up. Not too bad, really. You'll have 5 face-down attackers. You know what those are because you picked them, but the opponent doesn't know what they are yet. And that's going to be really important when we get to the next section, which is battles. Okay, so now we will go through the basics of a turn. That's this top part here is parts of a turn or phases of a turn. And so when you start your turn, you're going to draw 1 card. But the player who's going first doesn't do this on their first turn. So you don't do this the very first turn of the game if you're the player going first. But if you're going second, you do this. So you do draw 1 card into your hand because you already probably went through 1 battle already. But if you haven't gone through any battle yet and you're the first player, don't draw a card. And also don't do the second rule either, which is to take the top card and put it in your energy area. So do you understand, like each turn after, it's your turn, it's the other player's turn, it's your turn. When it's your turn, you're going to draw 1 card into your hand, and you're going to take the card that's on top of the deck after that and put it in the energy pile without looking at it. So it's face down to face down. And that's how you kind of maintain your energy level, build up more energy. Right? You can choose not to use it in 1 round or to save it up, however you want to play, right? Okay, and then since it's the beginning of your turn, you can now choose to use effects depending on what's on the board. So if you have characters face up, activated characters in the staging area with start of round effects, you can use them now. And so you want to use all those, and players, you have to resolve everything, kind of like the Magic the Gathering stack. Just put it on a stack, resolve it. Once everything's resolved, now you can move on to the next phase of your turn, which is starting a battle. And this is optional. You don't have to do this. You could not battle in a turn. That would be probably not a great idea because this game is very active in that way. But assuming you do want to battle in a turn, the way you do it is you pick one of your characters. Remember, you know the ones that are in your staging area. Your opponent doesn't know them unless they've already been flipped. And you pick one of the opponent's players, characters in their staging area, which you don't know what those are either unless they've been flipped. So it's kind of a blind pick, but you pick one of yours to fight one of theirs, and that's how you start. Then both players flip those cards over. Okay? And so, like I said, if they don't get beat up in this battle, they'll stay flipped up. And then in the next round, they can use their effects, assuming they live through the battle, right? Or there's like a support swap thing we'll talk about. Anyway, sorry. I hope you understand this game is not as simple as I thought. This isn't just a Pokemon thing. This is like a full-on TCG almost at the same level as like the Star Wars TCGs, some of those older ones that Decipher made. Not quite at Magic's level, but close, right? The rules here are pretty close. Okay, so anyway, both players are going to flip it. Then everyone knows sort of who's fighting who, and you will have on-flip effects that can happen. Remember, that's one of the types of effects that can be on a card. If it's that red, this red one here, that means you activate it when it's shown. So that's the kind of effect that can happen as soon as you flip the card to show it in battle. All right, so that's starting a battle. We're not done yet, though. There's 2 more parts to a battle, so let's move on. Okay, so then here it's saying that the attacker uses their card effects first. And then they put any energy they use, moves into the rest area, and flips over, right? So you can now see what those energy cards are once you've used them. But they're also kind of in that rest area where you can't get them back normally without some rule to get them back. But you'll at least know. But the attacker does that first, then the defender does that next. And then the rule book here gives an example using this Iron Man card, which I actually have that exact Iron Man card. Oh, no, I don't have that one. I have a different one. Sorry. Okay, but anyway, using an Iron Man card, the example is we're going to use 1 energy. So that means you have to take one of your energy cards that's face down here and move it here to be face up. You're using it, right? And if you don't have any, you can't activate this effect, so you have to be able to pay for it. And then Iron Man's effect gives 1,000 extra combat power. So if you're able to do that, suddenly Iron Man has 4,000, not 3,000. And, that might win you the battle right there, right? So that's a cool effect that Iron Man has just completely on his own. But it can get even more complicated. So let's look at some other examples. Let's look at support now. So at this point in the battle, both players have flipped their cards. Both players have used any effects that are on the flipped cards. And you kind of know basically who is going to win at this point, but it's not over yet. Like, you might know that you have 4,000 and they only have 3,000, so you're going to win. But it's not done yet. We have to go through the next phase, which is the support phase first. And in this phase, each player chooses a card from their hand to support the main battle, and the attacker chooses first. So the cards that you pick from your hand to do this are not initially revealed. So what you do is you choose one and kind of put it in that skills area at the top of the mat, and then it's face down, or anywhere you want, I guess, and it's face down, and then both players reveal them at the same time. The idea here is that you don't want either player to be able to use the information of the first player revealing their support card to pick their own support card. You want them to pick it without knowing what the other person's going to pick. That's the idea of that rule. All right, so once those are picked, then the combat strength of the main battle character and the support power of the support character you picked from your hand are combined, and that's the total power. And so let's go back and look at the anatomy of a card again. So if you remember, cards have a combat power and a support power. If you're using this Iron Spider-Man as support and not as the main attacker, you only get the 2,500. So that's its support value. That's what that means. All right, so then back here. So at that point, you have total combat power is known. And so there's another example here, which is if Iron Man with a combat power of 3,000 and War Machine is supporting him with a combat power of, with a support power of 2,500, the total power of that attacking force is 5,500. And so you see the support can really like double or even more increase your attacking ability against the other player. So picking a good support card is really important. But also remember that the support card may have an on-support ability. So that also will get resolved before the battle's over. And so if you play a support card that has an ability to use energy to get even more support power, you might be able to use some energy and increase that number even more. So you see again how there's actually quite a bit of strategy on the board here. It's not as simple as you would think, right? Okay, so then how do you decide a winner? So the two sides, once you've sort of beat down all the stacks, so the on flip effects have been done, the on attack effect, the on defend attack effects, like all these effects have to get resolved, and some of them may involve drawing cards and playing more cards. Like there can be a whole stack that happens between the support phase and resolution, but you've got to resolve all of that stuff before you move on to deciding a winner. But assuming everything's resolved, you will know the combat total of both players. And so if you have more, if the attacker has more than the defender, then the defender's main character goes to that damage area. That's where that card goes, over to the damage area. And remember, if you have 5 over there, you lose. So if you have 4 and you lose 1, you're going to lose. So that's where that goes. And then the winner, whoever won, right? So if you won or if the defender won, remember, you could be the attacker. You could have initiated this battle and you could lose, in which case your attacking character goes to your damage area. But if you are the winner, well, in that case, let's say again, so if you're the loser and your card's going to damage, your support card goes to rest, the rest area here. This is the rest area. So that's where the card would go, the support card would go if you lose. If you win, again, as the attacker or the defender, but if you're the winner, then you have to switch your support and main cards. And that's a really interesting effect. But basically, if you had a really weak support card chosen, that now becomes a main card up in the staging area, and it's put there face up. And so that's interesting because now if it has a on turn effect, you can use it before the next player even starts their turn. So it's kind of an interesting way to sort of sneak a card into your staging area. But you have to do that. You have to do that flip. And then the main character, the one that did the attack, has to go to the resting area. So just to kind of reiterate that, if you lost the battle, and you could lose as the attacker or the defender, your main character, the one that was in the staging area, goes to damage, and your support goes to rest. But if you win the battle, you have to flip the positions of the support and the main attacking character or defending character. So the support card goes into the staging area, and then the attacking or defending card goes into this rest area. So that's what's going to happen when you win or lose a battle. And then if for some reason there's a complete tie, like you get exactly the same totals at the end and it's a tie, if that happens, you treat it as a loss for both players. So both players treat that as a loss and move their card to the damage area and their support card to the rest area. So that's the entire battle flow, right? Now there's a lot of complexity hiding in there because, like I said, you have to resolve all of the effects on all of the cards, and there might be 4 other flipped over cards right in the attacking area that can all use their effects, and there can be a lot of stuff going on, but you have to resolve it all before you end a battle. Okay, so we're almost done with the rules. The last sheet here just kind of explains sort of your refresh or your upkeep phase. So in Magic the Gathering, we call that upkeep. This is what happens after your turn, before the next player starts their turn. You want to do this stuff. So first, you can use effects that happen at the end of a round. So that's one of the ways effects can activate. That's one of those colors from the beginning of the book. And so you can use those at the end of the round. For example, this one's showing an example of Quantum Suit Hulk. Quantum Suit Hulk can be deployed to the active area for 3 energy. So at the end of a round, you have Hulk in your hand. The player doesn't know you have that. But if you have 3 energy, you can now use it to get Hulk down into your staging area before the next round happens. But he's going to go down face up. So yeah, got to be ready for that because your player's going to know he's there then and can attack him immediately. There's none of this like deployment sickness that Magic has, summoning sickness or whatever. Okay, so that's kind of what can happen at the end of a round. And then this red text at the bottom is just saying that you keep doing this, keep having turns back and forth until you meet one of the winning conditions. And remember, the winning conditions are there are 5 defeated characters in the damage area, or you run out of library cards. Your deck. Sorry, I call it library all the time, but your deck. You run out of drawable cards. That's how the game ends. So, and that's it. That's the whole rule book. At this point, you have all of the same translated information that I do for this. There's no more rules that I don't know about. But what I want to do is show you a couple of cards. So what I did is I took some of the cards I have scanned already of various different levels, and I kind of translated what they are to help you understand what the kinds of effects that can be on the cards are. And so this vision card has an effect on defense. So what that means is if your opponent chooses vision either by accident because it's flipped down or on purpose because it's flipped up, you're allowed to use this effect. And the effect is you use 1 energy, moving 1 energy to the rest area, and you get 1500 extra combat power. So Vision can be a very powerful character if you have 1 energy and he gets attacked, right? Because he can then have 6000 combat immediately for just 1 energy. But if he's attacking, you can't use this. You cannot use this green ability when you attack. So you can only use this ability when Vision is defending. So that's like one type of card ability you can have. Remember, every card is going to have different ones on it. It's just like Magic. Every card has rule-changing things here. And that's where the complexity and strategy of the game comes from. So here's another one that happens on defense. And so this is Rocket Raccoon. And on defense, so if he's attacked, if there's a Guardians of the Galaxy card in your energy zone, then the combat power is plus 1,000. Now the trouble here is you don't normally know what's in your energy zone. So to use this ability, you would have had to already have used another ability that allows you to flip one of your energy cards. And so that's another kind of thing that can happen is you can play a card and it'll be like, okay, flip over your energy cards. And then you can see if there's a Guardians of the Galaxy one there. And if there is, you get an extra 1,000 from it. You don't have to pay any energy for this. It's just an automatic effect, but you would have had to do the setup to activate it. You would have had to have those cards in the energy area flipped over. They can't be face down. So Rocket's ability here is free, but only if you did that setup. Again, kind of interesting strategy, right? So moving on, those were both rare cards, simpler cards. This is now an SSR, so this is a pretty advanced card. And you can see it has a lot more rules, right? So on this card, it says at the beginning of our round, so that this is one of those abilities that activates at the start of your turn, not the end of your turn, right? So this isn't an upkeep thing. This is a beginning of your turn thing. You can use 3 energy cards. And if you do, you can select the opponent's visible character cards. So one of their character cards that's flipped over. And then if you have in your energy area a Spider-Man that is flipped over, then the target's combat power is minus 1,000. So do you understand? This card, if it's anywhere on the board, can use this ability. And if it's in the energy area flipped over, it is a Spider-Man card. So it would then immediately activate minus 1,000 combat power. And then if you look at that, if that combat power is reduced to 0, you move that character to the damage area. So if your opponent has a really weak combat power character visible somewhere, like they had to do that support flip and they have a weak character on the staging area, this Spider-Man can kill it right out. Like just kill it right at the beginning of the turn. Don't even deal with it. And then you still get to attack and you can still try to kill another character. So with this card in your energy zone, you might be able to take out two characters in a turn. Pretty cool. And so that's, again, like that's the sort of things that are on these cards, but you would have to Google Translate each one of them yourself. And really, Google Translate's not quite good enough. You kind of have to intuition a little bit of it too. Like I modified a lot of this translation based on my own knowledge and stuff. But as you learn the cards, it won't get that hard. The cards repeat a lot of the same things over and over again, and you'll start to understand what it all means. It's really not that complicated. I say that Mandarin is an incredibly complicated language, but the language, the parts of the Mandarin language that they use on these cards are not that complicated. It's like grade school level things, right, and concepts. So you will be able to understand this if you try. I figured it out. I don't speak a lot of Mandarin. Okay, so let's look at one more. This is another SSR. This is Jane Foster. And this one has 2 effects on it. The first effect is at the beginning of your round. So again, this is at the beginning of your turn, not the end of your turn. You can use 1 energy card, discard this card, so it would have to be in your hand. Then you can look at your deck, the top 3 cards of your deck, and select an Asgard card in there. So this Thor symbol here means it's Asgard, and there are many Asgard cards. So you can pick it and take it into your hand. So if you're using this Jane Foster in your deck, you probably want to make sure you have a lot of Asgard cards so that you can use her draw ability to pull those into your hand, right? And then if there are 2 Asgards who are in the damage area, then this ability gets more powerful. You get to look at the top 4, not just the top 3. So if you're kind of losing the game, this can help you sort of pull it back again. So kind of an interesting ability. And then this card has a second one, which is if it's supporting, so that means you picked it from your hand to be the support character, you draw 1 card. So that's kind of interesting too, right? If you're supporting, if you're supporting an Asgard character, so it only works if you're supporting Asgard. So again, like this is a card you probably want to use in a deck that's focused on Asgard characters, because otherwise neither of these abilities are going to activate too often. Anyway, okay, so that's it. I don't have much more to say here. We're already over 30 minutes. This is a pretty long video. Let me get these graphics down. And yeah, so that is how you play Hero Battle. I hope people find it interesting. I mean, it seems like a pretty fun, deep strategic game, actually. You know, I'm kind of thinking I might try and build some decks myself now or something, now that I kind of understand how it should be played. But I don't know. It's unlikely I'll ever find anyone else to play against me. But if I ever do build a deck, I'll play maybe a mock game and help you guys see the game in play. And like I said, I'll get all those images on the website as soon as I can. Probably not today, but some other day. And you'll be able to download them. But this video is 1080p, so if you just pause it, you can just copy it off there too. All right, so hope you enjoy the video. Have a great day.